I'm going to start with, start the tutorial today doing a bookworm. Uh, this is, believe it's 21 inches tall, and I don't know how wide it is. But anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and start. So all my colors that I use are Apple Barrel brand, and I'm going to teach you or show you. I don't know if I'm going to teach it very well, but I'm going to show you how to do shading the way that I do it. So the apple will be shaded, and of course the leaves, all of it will be shaded, but it'll still have a cartoony effect. So I'll go ahead and start. The colors that I have or that I'm using for the apple are going to be uh, three different colors. So this is a bright red here. This is a Tuscan red, and this is a flamenco red. All these colors I find at Walmart. They're 50 cents a bottle. So if you're looking for some good paints to use for your door hangers, this is my first suggestion, just because they're cheap to use, and I've never had any issues with them. So uh, the lighter colors like this, this it's not light, but it's got a little bit of translucency to it. So whenever you do it, you may have to use a couple coats, or you can lay down. Like this one is not primed; it's just sanded. So if you wanted to put down like a primer on it, you could use basically any primer to do it with. So we'll start out. I'll start out in the center with my brightest color, and just going to smooth it on. And as you can see, you still see the wood grain. So we're just going to keep adding layers till it's nice and thick. And just work from there. And it doesn't have to be pretty right now, because you're going to add in the more colors and give it a little bit more dimension as you go. Just keep working in long strokes. So as you can see, I've got the template drawn on it already. Just my bookworm outlined and everything. And you can work over that. That's just the outline, just a guide for you to go by. It doesn't have to be, you can work over that if you need to make it, to paint how you want to paint it. Because that's the fun of it. You can paint them, you can paint any door hanger, anything that you do, you can paint it any way that you want to. Because everyone has their own painting techniques, and everything is going to work differently for each person. So if you find this way, you don't really like painting this way, then that's perfectly fine, because you can paint it any way you want to. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with the flamenco red. It's a shade lighter than the Tuscan red, so I'm going to start out like this, and not doing any straight lines, kind of doing a little bit of a curve to it. And that's going to show kind of the shape of the apple a little bit better. I'm going to go in and see where I've painted now. You can see where my lines are a little bit. And then now at the bottom, I'm going to go in only with the Tuscan red. Or, I'm sorry, the flamenco red at the moment. Because that's going to be kind of like a shaded area from where the worm is. I'm just going to work around my outline. So I would do these tutorials live, because this is a little bit of a shorter paint versus some of the other ones that I do. I'm going to be doing my Hocus Pocus door hanger soon, or getting it uploaded and everything. I'm working on it now. It's just it's a long paint. It's about anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to paint it fully. So it's been a fun one to paint. But these are much shorter. There's not as much detail on these, but they turn out really cute. And they're perfect for back to school or teacher appreciation ones too. So now you can see on these parts where on the edge of the apple, I'm going to completely cover this on the edge with the flamenco red. Now we haven't touched our darkish red yet, and we'll go in a few minutes and get that touched in on there. And it'll be your darkest shade that you have. And we'll go back and hit our edges in a minute too. That's like the last thing I do. It's my most dreaded part of painting. I don't like doing edges. I don't know why. I guess because they're tedious. But so now we're going to go in, and I have my Tuscan red, and I'm going to do the same strokes as I was doing the other with the flamenco red. And you're going to kind of do the shape of the apple. And see how much dimension it gives the apple versus this side where you only have a flat red. And this gives it so much more shape. It makes it look more like an apple. And I'm going to go in all the way underneath. And so I've got my flamenco red under the worm. And I'm going in with the Tuscan red. And it's going to really just make it a little bit darker underneath. And give it some good shadows. I'm going to work back, going back the other way, and I'm going to add, while I get closer to my center, add a little bit of the bright red in. And that gives it good layering where it's a nice coat on your wood. But you also, it just gives it way more dimension. You have the nice streaks in there, and it just makes it more appealing to look at. So I'm going to keep working just like I did on this side, but I'm going to do the same, reverse it to the other side. If you notice, I have not cleaned my brush once. I work with the same brush doing this because the more paint you have on it, see, even though you have, it's got a little bit, it's picking up the darker paint in the center, that's okay. It's going to give it, like I said, those extra shades going in. Alright, now I'm going to start working in on the other side. I went in with my flamenco red. And bring it down with a little bit of an arc to it just to give your apple your shape. I'm going to come back in right here and hit a little bit of bright red in there just to blend it a little bit. And do the same down here. Down here I didn't put any flamenco red, so I need to go back in and touch that up. So now we're going to go in with the Tuscan Red, just like we did on the other side, and brush those edges and bring it back towards the center. Alright, get some more bright red in here, make it look shiny. I'm even doing a little bit down at the bottom too, and I'll come back in with, because I could still see a little bit of the wood grain. And you can keep adding as many layers as you want to make it look exactly how you want it to. And you can see some of my brush strokes, and that's okay. There we go. I'm going to go and do my edges, which is the least fun part about all this, and I'll be back with you guys. Alright, so we got our edges painted, and this up here. Okay, now where I used the flamenco red around the edges, just where it kind of had some spill over on the edge, I'm just going to brush a little bit of the Tuscan Red back over to bring that darkness in on the sides. Now you want to make sure around where you have your template drawn, like I haven't got a stick of paint down there, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to touch that up a little bit, because I don't want it to be sectioned off, I guess, where you have your worm painted and then you can still see like you have a thin coat of paint and then it gets thicker. You want it to really be cohesive. I'm going to hit around my worm a little bit, bringing that paint all the way down. Alright, so there's our apple finished, and now I'm going to start with the leaf and the stem at the top, and we'll get those finished up, and then we can work on our worm, and then I'm going to show you how I do my lettering too. It'll give my apple time to dry, because my customer wants normally I write principal or something down here on the worm, and my customer's wanting just her name and then welcome on the worm. So we'll get that done tonight. I'll show you a few of my techniques that I use for lettering, because I can't just go in and paint lettering. I have to write it out with chalk and everything, because if I go in and just start painting, I'm guaranteed to mess it up. So it's just easier if I use the chalk paint or the chalk pencil to write it on first, and then if I don't like it, I can wipe it off. Alright, so I have a Kelly green, a marsh green, which has a little bit of my kiwi mixed into it, and a kiwi paint. Now, like I said earlier, all of my paints are from Walmart. They're the apple barrel, and I'll use a little bit of lime tree as well. And this, you can see they're very different colors, but whenever they're blended together, they turn out really well, and it gives it good shading. So let's get started on our, we'll do the same colors on our leaf as we're going to do our bookworm. So go ahead. Now on my bookworm, or I'm sorry, on my leaf at the top, I'm going to go in with my marsh green. Give me a second, let me get some more paint in here. I'm running low. Alright, so we got our marsh green. I'm going to go in and just paint your whole leaf with it. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and get my edges of it painted. Get the least fun part out of the way. Don't have to worry about it anymore. So you can see that this one is pretty translucent. You can see the wood through, and then you've got the red where I painted up above, where you can see that red peeking through, and that's okay, we'll cover it up. So I'm going to take my kiwi, and it's a very bright lime green, and I'm going to start in the middle while my marsh green's still wet and work my way out. And this is going to blend it together, but it's also going to lighten up that green a lot, and it's going to cover up your wood grain showing through, a lot of it anyways. And it's going to give it some pretty colors in there. I'm going to hit it again, really focusing on the center to brighten up the middle part, and making it the shape of a leaf, not just doing, I don't do brush strokes down this way. You want to, whenever you do your strokes, push them out sideways and bring them up. Alright, so we have those, and I'm going to go back in with my marsh green and hit the edges, because I want to darken those up a little bit. time you do a stroke, just work in the shape of the leaf. If you get a little bit out of your lining, that's okay. You can go back and fix it. So I'm going to bring in a little bit darker. This is Christmas green. And just do my edges with it. That marsh green wasn't working very well for me. Grab the wrong color. Go back in with the Christmas green, sorry. And it's going to pull all those colors in with it. So that's how I like to do my shading. Even though you have darker green here and a little bit of lighter green here, it still works. It doesn't make it look silly or anything. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with my lime tree. So I have this real citrusy looking green right here is the kiwi. And I'll go in with my lime and just make that center of that leaf kind of stand out a little bit more. I'm doing this while all the paint's still pretty wet. That way they blend better. And that whole time I didn't wash my brush or anything. That way all those colors really mix well. You can see them blended and they don't, you're not trying to work so hard. Whereas like if you're working with oil paints, they blend super easy, but they take forever to dry. Whereas these dry extremely fast, so you have to work really fast to be able to get them to blend really well. Alright, now I'm going to go in and start working on the stem of the apple. And I'm going to be using 3 different browns to do the shading on it. And whenever we get through doing everything, we'll go back and hit it all with highlights. And I'm going to do like the lining on the leaf as well. So go in, and this is melted chocolate brown. I'm going to come in and cover my whole stem in it. So I'm going to pull this down just a little bit so maybe you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to hit my edges with this color too. I'm going to try to stay in my lines on this one, on this part, since I've already got my leaf done. It's not as easy as staying in the lines with crayons, but we'll try our best. Now on my template, I have a line drawn,